After being caught cheating with his mistress, my husband shouted at me angrily, "Get out of this house right now. Let's see how long you can survive without my money. By tomorrow morning, you'll probably be a homeless woman sleeping on the sidewalk." That very night, I packed my belongings and left. But 1 week later, my phone rang. It was my husband. His voice was panicked, terrified. "Why are there police officers in this house? What did you do?" I simply smiled and ended the call. He had no idea that the wife he thought was weak was actually... Before the story begins, please write in the comments which country or city you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so Stories with Meaning can continue to grow and bring you more powerful stories like this one. A loud crash shattered the silence of the night. A large black suitcase was thrown violently, slamming against the living room wall. Its contents spilled out slightly because the zipper hadn't been fully closed. Ethan Miller stood there, breathing heavily. His face was flushed with uncontrollable rage. Beside him stood Vanessa Clark, her arms crossed confidently over her chest. A mocking smile curled on her heavily lipsticked lips as she looked down at the woman standing frozen in the corner of the room. That woman was Diana Miller, Ethan's wife. Diana lowered her gaze to the suitcase lying pitifully on the marble floor. She had just returned from her weekly charity gathering and was greeted by a sight that shattered her heart. Her husband openly flirting with another woman inside their own home. Yet instead of apologizing or feeling guilty, Ethan exploded. Being caught red-handed wounded his pride, and his defense mechanism was to attack brutally. Ethan stepped forward, pointing his trembling finger inches from Diana's face. His voice thundered through the house that had been a silent witness to their 5-year marriage. "Get out of this house," he shouted harshly. His eyes burned with fury, as if he wanted to devour her whole. "Let's see how long you survive without my money. By tomorrow, you'll probably be a homeless beggar on the streets." Every word stabbed straight into Diana's heart. Ethan was absolutely confident. To him, Diana was nothing more than a weak housewife, jobless, dependent, living comfortably only because of his salary as a corporate executive. What he forgot or refused to acknowledge was that his luxurious life didn't fall from the sky. Vanessa let out a soft laugh, her voice sharp and venomous. She stepped closer to Ethan, gently stroking his arm as if reassuring him. Her gaze swept over Diana from head to toe with open contempt. In Vanessa's eyes, Diana was old-fashioned and boring, nothing like herself, who knew exactly how to feed a man's ego. She believed she had won that night. She had successfully removed the biggest obstacle standing between her and Ethan and his fortune. Diana took a deep breath. Strangely, no tears fell. Her heart raced from shock, but her mind was calm, cold, and razor-sharp. Ethan's insults flipped a switch inside her, extinguishing the last remnants of love and respect she had for Ethan. For years, she had stayed silent. She had endured and looked away to preserve their marriage. But tonight, that line had been crossed, cruelly and irreversibly. With graceful movements, Diana adjusted her shawl, which had shifted slightly. Her face was calm, too calm for a woman being thrown out of her own home. She didn't scream back, she didn't beg, she didn't fall at Ethan's feet as he expected. For a moment, Ethan was stunned by her reaction, but his ego quickly dismissed the unease. Diana walked toward the suitcase. She knelt down, neatly tucked the clothes back inside, and zipped it closed. Her movements were unhurried, as if she were preparing for a vacation, not exile. She stood up straight and looked Ethan directly in the eyes. That gaze wasn't of a wounded wife. It was the gaze of a ruler looking down on a disobedient subject. "Remember your words, Ethan," Diana said softly, each syllable heavy with meaning. "When your world collapses, don't come looking for me." That was all she said. Without waiting for a response, Diana pulled the suitcase handle and walked toward the front door. She didn't look back. To her, that house was no longer a home, just an empty building filled with strangers. Ethan snorted angrily. "Go! Don't expect me to rescue you when you're starving." Vanessa wrapped her arms around him, whispering sweet reassurances. They returned to the bedroom, convinced they had won everything, unaware they had just dug their own grave. Outside, the night wind blew cold. Diana dragged her suitcase across the wide front yard. The dim garden lights illuminated her steady steps. She opened the heavy iron gate by herself. The creaking sound echoed to the quiet luxury neighborhood. Diana stood alone on the empty sidewalk. According to Ethan, she should have been crying, panicking, calling relatives for help, becoming homeless. But reality had other plans. As soon as the gate closed behind her, blinding headlights appeared at the end of the street. A sleek black European luxury sedan rolled to a stop in front of her. This was no taxi. Its price alone could buy 2 houses like the one she had just left. The driver's door opened. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit stepped out. His name was Michael Hayes. To Ethan, Michael was merely a delivery guy, sometimes a hired gardener. Tonight, however, Michael looked entirely different, professional, commanding, powerful. He approached Diana quickly and bowed his head respectfully. "Good evening, Mrs. Anderson," he greeted politely, taking the suitcase from her hands. "My apologies, I'm 10 seconds late." Diana smiled faintly, a smile Ethan hadn't seen in months. "That's all right, Michael. Your timing is perfect." Michael opened the rear passenger door. The scent of premium leather filled the air, replacing the bitterness Diana had just escaped. She sat back comfortably. "Shall we proceed to your father's residence, ma'am?" asked Michael through the rear-view mirror as the engine hummed silently. "Yes," Diana replied calmly, "and make sure all financial access linked to Ethan's secondary cards are terminated tonight." Her tone had changed completely. This was no obedient wife. This was a corporate leader issuing absolute commands. "It's already done, ma'am," Michael replied. "The finance department blocked his credit cards 5 minutes right when you exited the gate. Legal documents for tomorrow morning are also prepared." The car pulled away, leaving Ethan's house shrinking in the distance. Diana looked out the window at the passing city lights. Her reflection stared back, not a defeated woman, but a queen reclaiming her throne. Ethan had no idea who he had just thrown away. He thought he had discarded trash. In reality, he had let go of the diamond holding his entire life together. Diana closed her eyes. The role of the humble wife was over. Now the queen had returned. Morning sunlight streamed through the bedroom curtains. Ethan stretched lazily beneath the blankets, his head slightly pounding from last night's indulgence. He turned to see Vanessa still asleep beside him, hair messy, breathing softly. A victorious smile appeared on his face. He felt free. No nagging wife, no lectures, no restrictions. The house was his kingdom now. He walked toward the kitchen, expecting breakfast to be waiting, just like always. Unaware, his empire had already begun to fall. However, Ethan's steps halted the moment he saw the empty dining table. There was no warm fried rice waiting for him, no steaming cup of coffee, no neatly arranged plates. The kitchen was a mess. Dirty glasses and plates from last night's small party were scattered across the sink. Ants had already begun swarming the leftover food that hadn't been cleaned up. Ethan clicked his tongue in annoyance. Only then did it hit him. Diana was gone. For years, every household matter had been handled flawlessly by Diana without the help of a maid. Ethan had always insisted he didn't like strangers in the house, claiming it was for efficiency and privacy. Now reality slapped him in the face. He had to make his own coffee. Grumbling, Ethan prepared a cup of instant coffee. One sip made him frown. It tasted nothing like Diana's usual brew made from selected premium coffee beans. Tch, whatever. I'll just hire a housekeeper later. I've got plenty of money, he muttered, trying to reassure himself. He sipped the overly sweet coffee while imagining how impressive he would look at the office today. An hour later, Ethan strode confidently into the lobby of the office building where his company was headquartered. He wore his finest tailored suit, chin lifted high, flashing his trademark smile at the receptionist who greeted him politely. Ethan Miller was the CEO of a rapidly rising real estate development company. In his mind, the company's success was purely the result of his genius, his ability to charm clients and dominate marketing strategies. He never realized that unseen hands had been smoothing his path all along. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," several employees greeted respectfully. Though some whispered to each other as he passed, Ethan didn't care. He entered the private executive elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. Inside his spacious office with a breathtaking city view, Ethan tossed his briefcase on the sofa and sank into his leather chair, spinning it arrogantly. He felt untouchable. That feeling didn't last long. A hesitant knock echoed at the door. "Come in," Ethan called out. The door opened. It was his secretary, Rena Lewis. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she clutched a tablet and a stack of documents. The usual polite smile was nowhere to be seen. "What's wrong, Rena? You look like you've seen a ghost," Ethan scoffed as he powered on his computer. "I'm sorry, sir. We have a serious problem," Rena said, her voice tight. "This morning, 3 of our main investors sent notices canceling their contracts unilaterally." Ethan laughed dismissively. "Don't joke around. Unilateral cancellation? They'll face massive penalties. Let them leave. We have plenty of investors waiting." Rena shook her head weakly. "That's the issue, sir. The contract clause you signed allows them to withdraw without penalty if the primary guarantor pulls out." Ethan frowned. "Primary guarantor? Who? This company was built on my hard work. The collateral is the company's own assets." Rena swallowed nervously. "Actually, sir, our liquidity guarantee has been provided by a holding company that endorsed your performance. The company is called Shadow Capital. They officially withdrew all backing this morning." Ethan's blood ran cold. "The effect is immediate," Rena continued. "Our construction material suppliers for the South City apartment project just called. Cement and steel deliveries are suspended until last month's invoices are fully paid." Ethan slammed his desk. "Then pay them. There's still millions of dollars in the company's accounts." Rena's voice trembled. "That's another problem, sir. The Federal Central Bank has frozen all company accounts due to a sudden audit investigating incoming flows. We can't release a single dollar today." Silence. Ethan's face flushed deep red. His heartbeat pounded, not from excitement, but from panic creeping into his chest. He grabbed the desk phone and tried calling his usual insider contact at the bank, the one he played golf with. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. "This has to be a system error," he shouted in frustration. Just yesterday he was king. How could his empire shake overnight by a few emails? His personal phone vibrated. Vanessa Hart flashed across the screen. Ethan answered roughly, expecting her sweet voice to comfort him. "Vanessa, I'm busy. There's a situation at the office," he snapped. Her voice on the other end was irritated, not affectionate. "Ethan, what's going on with you? I'm at our usual boutique trying to buy the bag we saw yesterday. Your debit card was declined. The staff was staring at me. It was humiliating. They said the balance is insufficient or the account is blocked. Transfer $50,000 to my account right now. I need to pay." Ethan's blood ran cold. His personal debit card declined. That was impossible. That account was his salary account, separate from the company. "Just wait, stop nagging, I'll handle it," he snapped before hanging up. He immediately opened his mobile banking app. His fingers trembled as he entered the access code. The loading screen felt painfully slow. When the account finally appeared, Ethan's eyes widened in horror. The balance wasn't hundreds of thousands like he remembered. It was zero. Account status, suspended, under investigation. Ethan threw his phone on the desk. His breathing turned erratic. Cold sweat soaked his temples. Diana's words echoed in his mind. "When your world collapses, don't come looking for me." "No, this can't be Diana's doing," Ethan muttered in denial. "She was just a housewife. She couldn't possibly have this kind of power." This had to be a coincidence, a banking error, bad timing. He clung desperately to the illusion of control, unaware that the foundation of his sandcastle had already begun to crumble. And this was only the first splash of water. The real storm was still approaching. 3 days after Diana's departure, Ethan's office had transformed into a battlefield. The air conditioning that once provided comfort now felt useless against the suffocating heat of panic spreading throughout the executive floor. Ethan sat in his oversized chair, his dress shirt wrinkled, tie loosened, hair disheveled from repeatedly running his fingers through it in frustration. Phones rang endlessly, office lines clashing with his personal phone, creating a symphony of chaos that made his head throb. He stared blankly at the pile of documents on his desk. They weren't lucrative project proposals. They were bills, termination notices. One by one, longtime suppliers canceled deliveries, all citing the same rehearsed excuse: internal administrative issues and credit risk assessment. Ethan knew better. 5 major companies didn't make identical decisions within 24 hours unless someone extremely powerful was pulling the strings. Yet his ego refused to accept that Diana, the wife he believed only knew kitchen matters, could wield this kind of influence. The office door burst open without a knock. Rena stormed in, her expression devoid of respect. Her eyes were swollen. She had clearly been crying. Without a word, she placed a brown envelope on Ethan's desk. "What is this?" Ethan asked hoarsely. "This is a formal warning from the building management," Rena replied coldly. "We're overdue on office rent. They're giving us 48 hours to pay or electricity to this floor will be cut." She paused. "And one more thing. Employee salaries that were due yesterday still haven't been transferred. The marketing team has stopped working. They're gathered in the cafeteria discussing rumors that the company is about to collapse." Ethan slammed his desk, making his coffee cup shake. "Who's spreading those ridiculous rumors? Tell them salaries are just delayed due to a central banking system issue. I'm Ethan Miller. I've never failed to pay what people are owed," he shouted, trying to mask the terror gnawing at him. Rena sighed deeply, her gaze filled with pity and disgust. "You can shout all you want, sir, but the banking system won't change because of it. If salaries aren't paid by tomorrow, I'll be resigning as well." She turned and slammed the door behind her. Ethan was left alone in crushing silence. He pulled out his expensive leather wallet. Inside were rows of cards he once flaunted as symbols of success, platinum cards, a black card. Now they felt as worthless as toy cards. Just yesterday, he had tried to treat a potential investor to lunch at a five-star restaurant. When it was time to pay, his primary credit card was declined. The payment terminal flashed, "Transaction denied, client restricted." He had swallowed his humiliation, claiming he left his wallet behind, pretending to call his assistant to bring cash, when in reality, he had borrowed money through petty cash through Rena. His phone vibrated again. Vanessa. Ethan stared at the screen with mixed emotions. Her name once sparked excitement. Now it felt like another burden. Reluctantly, Ethan slid the green answer button. "Hello, Vanessa. What is it now?" he asked bluntly. "Babe, where are you?" Vanessa's voice screeched, sharp and demanding. "I'm at our regular beauty salon. The cashier said the debit card you gave me yesterday doesn't work anymore. Did you do this on purpose to embarrass me? My friends saw everything." "Transfer the money now or come here and pay it yourself. It's just a $2,000 facial treatment. Don't tell me you can't afford that." Ethan pressed his throbbing temples. "Vanessa, can you try to understand my situation for once? The office is in chaos. Company funds are under audit. All accounts are frozen. Use your own cash for now. What's the problem? I give you a monthly allowance, don't I?" Vanessa scoffed. "Excuse me? My money is my money. Your money is your money. Besides, what kind of successful businessman has an empty wallet? Don't tell me you've been lying about being rich all this time." Her words struck Ethan's pride like a slap. He fell silent. In that moment, he realized something bitter. The woman he adored was nothing more than a parasite, clinging only while the host was prosperous. And suddenly, he thought of Diana. His wife had never once demanded expensive treatments or luxury spending. She always dressed simply yet elegantly. Whenever money problems arose, Diana was the first to quietly offer her personal savings without being asked. Regret began to creep in, but Ethan's arrogance quickly crushed it. "No, I don't need Diana. I can fix this myself." Without another word, Ethan hung up on Vanessa, leaving her shouting in rage. Then he did something he had avoided for the past 3 days. With trembling hands, he searched for Diana's contact on his phone. He wasn't sure if he wanted to yell at her to make her stop this madness, or if deep down he wanted to ask for help. He pressed call. Silence. No ringtone, just a cold automated voice. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable or out of service." Ethan hurled his phone onto the sofa. "Damn it!" he shouted. He felt trapped from all directions. Meanwhile, miles away from Ethan's crumbling office, the atmosphere was completely different. At the top floor of a towering skyscraper, inside a glass-walled executive office overlooking the bustling city, Diana Anderson sat gracefully in a large leather chair. Gone were the casual home clothes and tired expression of a housewife. She wore a sharp professional business suit. Her shawl was perfectly arranged, flawless, radiating an intimidating aura of authority. Seated across from her were 2 men in tailored suits, visibly nervous. They were representatives of the Federal Central Bank, the institution that had long financed Ethan's company. Michael Hayes stood beside Diana like a loyal bodyguard, alert and unwavering. "So, Mrs. Anderson," one of the bankers said while sliding a thick folder across the desk, "the debt transfer documents for Miller Development Corp., your husband's company, are ready. With your signature, all outstanding liabilities will legally become assets of your investment firm, Shadow Capital. You will have full authority to demand immediate repayment or seize collateral in the event of default." Diana smiled faintly, so faint it was almost invisible. She picked up an expensive pen. Her hand did not hesitate. The motion of her signature was smooth yet firm. She was not saving her husband. She was purchasing the noose that would tighten around his neck. "Thank you, gentlemen," Diana said calmly. "Please proceed with execution under the strictest procedures. I do not tolerate payment delays, even from companies led by someone I once knew." The bankers nodded respectfully and exited. After they left, Michael poured warm tea into Diana's cup. "Ma'am, are you sure you don't want to give Mr. Miller a warning first?" he asked carefully. Diana sipped her tea slowly, eyes fixed on the distant skyline. "A warning?" she replied coldly. "I warned him for 5 years of marriage. Warnings to be faithful, warnings to be honest, warnings not to be greedy. He ignored them all. This is no longer about warnings, it's about consequences. Send the gift now." "Yes, ma'am," Michael replied promptly, tapping on his tablet. Back at Ethan's office, he loosened his tie, gasping for air. Suddenly, an email notification chimed. No subject line, anonymous sender. Curious and uneasy, he opened it. His heart stopped. His eyes bulged as he stared at the screen. Attached were photos of documents he knew all too well. They were images of his secret ledger, the one hidden in his personal safe, the book documenting illegal fund transfers, tax evasion, and inflated project budgets over the past 2 years. Money he used to fund his luxury lifestyle and spoil Vanessa. No one knew about that ledger. No one. So how could someone else have these photos? Beneath the images was a single sentence written in bold red capital letters. "Time's up." Cold sweat poured down Ethan's back. He finally understood something terrifying. His enemy wasn't bad luck. It was someone who knew exactly where all his skeletons were buried, and that person was holding the shovel. 5 days after Diana was forced out, the once pristine luxury house now resembled a wrecked ship. The marble floors were dusty, stained with dirty footprints. Piles of unwashed dishes rotted in the sink, spreading a foul smell throughout the house. Laundry baskets overflowed with untouched dirty clothes. Without Diana, the house had lost its soul, turning into a cold, chaotic shell. Ethan slumped on the living room sofa, exhausted. He had returned early from an office that was rapidly collapsing, only to find the same disorder at home. Across from him, Vanessa sat glued to her phone, completely ignoring him. No warm greeting, no comfort, only hostility. "Vanessa!" Ethan snapped. "What have you been doing all day? Those dishes have been piling up for 3 days. My work clothes haven't been washed. What am I supposed to wear tomorrow?" Vanessa slammed her phone down and glared at him. "Listen, Ethan, I'm not your maid. I'm not your ex-wife who played Cinderella. I agreed to be with you because I thought you were rich. Maids, luxury, easy life. If I knew I'd be washing dishes and clothes myself, I'd rather find another man." Ethan stared at her stunned. Her true nature, hidden behind sweetness, was now fully exposed. "So you were only after my money?" he asked bitterly. Vanessa laughed sharply. "Of course! And now you're broke. Credit card's dead, no shopping money. Your luxury car got repossessed yesterday because you missed payments. Now we're stuck with some junk company car. You're a fraud, Ethan. You said you were a big boss, but you're just an empty shell." Ethan clenched his fists, trembling with rage. "Shut up! I'm fixing things. This is just temporary." "Temporary my ass," Vanessa sneered before storming into the bedroom and slamming the door. Ethan collapsed back onto the sofa. His head throbbed violently. He missed the peace that once filled this house. He missed Diana's warm tea, her soft voice, the calm she brought whenever he came home burdened with problems. Now he finally understood her worth, but regret had arrived too late. The next morning, Ethan forced himself to go to the office wearing a poorly ironed shirt he had pressed himself. What greeted him was worse than anything before. The floor was deserted. Empty desks, computers shut down. Only resignation letters lay neatly on each key employee's desk. Not one or two, but nearly the entire core team. finance director, operations manager, senior legal staff. They were the people who kept the company alive. Their mass resignation was a death sentence. On Rena Lewis's desk lay the same letter with a handwritten note. "I'm sorry, sir. I received an offer from a Dietema group with triple the salary. I couldn't resist. I wish you well." A Dietema group, a corporate giant, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. Ethan had no idea how all his employees moved there at once. He felt like a ship captain abandoned mid-storm, completely alone. He tried calling his lawyer, Mr. Raymond Hart, his last hope. No answer. The law firm informed him that Mr. Hart was on extended leave overseas. The world was conspiring against him. Defeated, he went home early. But as he arrived, he saw a courier motorcycle stopped by his gate. A man in an orange uniform slipped a large red envelope through the fence. "For Mr. Ethan Miller," the courier said before leaving. With shaking hands, he opened it. Inside was an official notice bearing the letterhead of a foreign holding company. His eyes scanned the page. His knees gave out. Ethan collapsed onto the ground. It was an eviction order. The letter stated clearly that the property he had been living in all this time was not his personal asset, but rather an asset owned by the parent holding company, loaned to him as a facility attached to his position as chief executive officer. Due to serious violations of his employment contract and alleged acts of corporate corruption committed by Ethan Miller, the facility was officially revoked. He and all occupants of the house were given 24 hours to vacate the premises. "This is impossible," Ethan muttered, his voice trembling. He had always believed the house was legally under his name. He distinctly remembered signing the deed of sale 5 years ago, but then another memory surfaced. Back then, Diana Anderson had handled all the legal details with the notary, while Ethan had signed without reading, too busy scrolling through his phone. Only now did he realize the truth. From the very beginning, Diana and her family had protected their assets against the worst possible outcome. Ethan had never truly owned anything. He had nearly been living in his wife's house, and now he was being evicted from it. Before he could fully process the shock, Vanessa Clark's scream echoed from inside the house. Ethan rushed in and found Vanessa standing frozen in front of the large television in the living room. Her face was deathly pale, eyes locked onto the screen in sheer terror. "Ethan, look at that," Vanessa whispered, trembling as she pointed. Ethan turned toward the TV. A breaking news broadcast was playing. Displayed clearly on the screen was Ethan's face with bold headlines beneath it. CEO of Miller Wijaya Industries allegedly involved in money laundering and tax evasion scandal. The news reporter spoke rapidly and firmly. "Federal prosecutors and the Anti-Corruption Task Force have officially elevated the investigation status of Ethan Miller today. The alleged financial losses are estimated to reach tens of millions of U.S. dollars. Strong evidence has been submitted by internal parties within the company. Authorities urge the suspect not to attempt fleeing abroad, as a travel ban has been enforced effective immediately." Ethan's world spun violently. His vision blurred, his ears rang loudly. He staggered backward until his back hit the wall. His legs could no longer support him, and he slid down onto the floor, staring blankly ahead. It was over. Diana's threat had never been an emotional outburst of a heartbroken wife. It was a death sentence delivered by an unseen judge. Ethan realized something far more terrifying. He wouldn't just become homeless as he had once cruelly mocked Diana. He would become something far worse, a poor, disgraced inmate hated by the entire nation. In the corner of the room, Vanessa broke down into hysterical sobs, not out of sympathy for Ethan, but because she finally understood she had been dragged into a sinking ship. Outside, dark clouds gathered ominously, as if the universe itself was preparing to unleash a storm upon the ruins of Ethan's life. That night, exactly 1 week after Diana left the house, the mansion felt more like a haunted house than a luxury residence. Heavy rain had been pouring over the city since afternoon, creating an endless roar against the roof. Inside, the lighting was dim. Several bulbs had burned out, and Ethan had neither the money nor the will to call an electrician. Cardboard boxes were scattered across the living room. Ethan and Vanessa were packing their belongings with sour expressions. The eviction notice they received the day before carried an absolute ultimatum. They had to leave before sunrise, or security officers would forcibly remove them. Ethan folded his suit roughly and tossed it into a box. He looked 10 years older than his actual age. Dark circles hung heavily under his eyes, his hair was greasy, and his body odor began to sting. Across the room, Vanessa sobbed incontrollably as she stuffed her luxury bags and expensive shoes into a suitcase. She complained non-stop about how unfair life was, how she didn't deserve to suffer like this, and blamed Ethan for everything that had gone wrong. "Can you shut up?" Ethan snapped. His patience was gone. "My head is about to explode listening to you. If it weren't for your endless demands, I would never have dared to take company money." Vanessa glared at him, fury blazing in her eyes. "Oh, now you're blaming me? You're the idiot here. You're a useless man. If I knew I'd end up living like a beggar, I would never have left my ex for you." Their argument was abruptly cut short by a violent crash at the front door. This was no polite knock. It was a forceful, intimidating slam. Ethan and Vanessa exchanged looks of pure horror. Ethan's heart pounded violently as he glanced at the wall clock. 10 p.m. Who would come at this hour in the middle of a storm? "Maybe they're the neighborhood security," Ethan whispered shakily. "They're probably here to kick us out early." Swearing under his breath, Ethan walked toward the door with hesitant steps. The pounding grew louder, accompanied by a shout from outside. "Open the door! Police!" Ethan's blood ran cold. His face turned ghostly pale. Police? Why were the police here? He thought his case was still under investigation, that he was merely under a travel ban, not facing arrest this evening. With violently shaking hands, Ethan unlocked the door and opened it slightly. The door was shoved open forcibly, sending Ethan stumbling backward onto the floor. A group of heavily armed officers in tactical vests stormed into the living room. Rainwater and mud splashed across the marble floor from their heavy boots. At the center of them, a police commissioner stepped forward, fixing Ethan with a cold, piercing stare. "Are you Ethan Miller?" the officer asked sternly. Ethan struggled to stand, trying to salvage the last fragments of his shattered authority. "Yes, I'm Ethan. What is this? Why are you barging in like thugs? Do you know who I am? I know powerful people." The officer remained completely unimpressed. He pulled out a document bearing the police insignia and held it directly in front of Ethan's face. "We have an arrest warrant for Ethan Miller on charges of corporate corruption, money laundering, and falsification of asset documents. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be and will be used against you in court." He turned to his men. "Cuff him." 2 officers immediately grabbed Ethan's arms, wrenching them behind his back. Click. The sound of cold steel locking around his wrists echoed like a death bell in Ethan's ears. The chill spread throughout his entire body. This was not a nightmare. This was real. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding. I'm being framed. I want my lawyer. I want to call my wife." Meanwhile, Vanessa, watching from the hallway, screamed hysterically and tried to flee through the back door with her suitcase. She didn't make it far. 2 female officers were already stationed there. Vanessa was caught red-handed. She thrashed and screamed, but her strength was no match. "Let me go. I don't know anything. I'm just his girlfriend." "We've also found evidence of fund transfers to accounts under her name," the commissioner stated coldly without turning around. She is listed as an accomplice. Ethan collapsed, begging pitifully. "Sir, please, let me make one phone call, just one. I need to contact someone who can explain everything. This has to be an administrative error." The officer studied him briefly, then nodded. One call, 2 minutes. A phone was placed into Ethan's cuffed hands. They trembled violently. Who could he call? His lawyer had vanished. His friends had abandoned him. His parents were elderly and ill. Only one name crossed his mind, the only person who might, just might, still have a shred of pity for him. Diana Anderson. Ethan dialed her number. The ringing tone matched the frantic rhythm of his heart. After the third ring, the call was answered. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding Ethan. In the background, soft classical music played, along with the gentle clink of a spoon against fine porcelain. "Diana, it's me, Ethan," he cried hoarsely. Tears streamed down his face. "Oh, Mr. Ethan, why are you calling so late? Have you forgotten that, religiously speaking, I'm no longer your wife?" "Diana, please help me. The police are here. They're arresting me. They say I committed corruption. You have to help me. You know I couldn't have done this alone. You have to talk to them." Ethan rambled in panic. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then came the sound of Diana calmly sipping her tea. "Oh, I see. So they have finally arrived," she said softly. "Good. They're right on schedule." Ethan's eyes widened. "What do you mean? You knew about this?" Diana chuckled, a laugh devoid of warmth, filled only with cold satisfaction. "Of course I knew. Who do you think submitted the forensic audit report to the federal prosecutors this morning? Who do you think granted the police full access to open your private safe?" Ethan's
At least it's free, perfectly suited to your current economic level. Click. The call was terminated unilaterally. The long, hollow disconnect tone was the last sound Ethan Miller heard before the phone was snatched back by the police. His last shred of hope vanished. He hadn't just been arrested. He had been completely annihilated by the woman he had always considered weak. Ethan was dragged out of the house under the pounding rain, watched by neighbors peering from behind their windows. Blue patrol lights flashed across his face, now soaked with rain and tears alike. That night, the puppet king officially fell from his throne, descending into the darkness of the prison that awaited him. The flickering white neon lights on the ceiling of the interrogation room made Ethan's headache worsen. The room was narrow, cold, and smelled stale. The walls were lined with dull gray soundproof panels. At the center stood a steel table bolted to the floor, flanked by 2 uncomfortable chairs. Ethan sat on one of them, his hands still cuffed on the tabletop. His once luxurious suit was soaked and filthy. His shirt clung to his skin. He had been there for 5 hours without food or water, accompanied only by suffocating fear. The heavy steel door opened. Commissioner Aria, the officer who had led the arrest the night before, entered carrying a thick folder. He sat across from Ethan casually and dropped the folder onto the table with a loud thud. "Ready to talk, Mr. Miller?" Aria asked calmly as he uncapped his pen. "Or are you still waiting for a miracle?" "I won't say a word until my lawyer arrives," Ethan snapped hoarsely. "Mr. Rahman is on his way. He'll sue all of you for illegal arrest." Commissioner Aria smirked. "Ah, Mr. Rahman, the famous attorney. What a coincidence. He's already outside." He turned toward the door. "Please come in, Mr. Rahman." Ethan's eyes lit up with hope. The door opened again and Mr. Rahman walked in. The middle-aged man looked impeccably dressed in an expensive suit, a stark contrast to Ethan's miserable state. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with calm confidence. "Thank God you're here, Mr. Ramond," Ethan exclaimed in relief. "Please explain to these foolish officers that I'm innocent. They accuse me of asset forgery. You know those documents are legal. You prepared them yourself." Mr. Ramond didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a chair beside Commissioner Aria, not beside Ethan. He sat down calmly and looked at Ethan with an unreadable expression. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller," Mr. Ramond said flatly. "I'm not here as your attorney." The smile vanished from Ethan's face. "What do you mean? You're the company's lawyer. You've been my personal lawyer for 5 years. I paid you well." "Correction," Mr. Ramond replied calmly. "You never paid me a single dollar. My legal fees were fully covered by the holding company that owns your firm. Technically and ethically, my client is the capital owner, not the director they employed." Ethan stared in disbelief. "But I'm the CEO. I'm the boss." "You were an employee with a title, Mr. Miller." Mr. Ramond continued. "My purpose here is to submit additional evidence requested by investigators and deliver a formal legal notice from my principal client." He removed documents from his briefcase and handed them to Commissioner Aria. "These are recorded conversations and transfer records proving that Mr. Miller knowingly diverted operational funds into Miss Vanessa Clark's personal account, along with evidence of illegal mortgaging of company land certificates." Ethan felt as though lightning had struck him. "You set me up," he cried. "Why are you doing this? Who is your real client? Who paid you to destroy me?" Mr. Ramond adjusted his glasses. "My client is a very patient person, Mr. Miller. She gave you many chances to be honest, but you chose otherwise." "Who is she?" Ethan screamed hysterically, trying to stand but restrained by his cuffs. "Show her to me." Commissioner Aria pointed to the large mirrored wall beside the room, a one-way mirror. "Mr. Ramond's client has been behind that glass, observing you the entire time." Ethan stared at the dark reflection. He saw his own ruined face, disheveled, broken. Slowly, almost like a hallucination, he sensed someone standing there. His heart pounded violently. Then the side door opened, the one connecting to the observation room. Soft but firm footsteps echoed. High heels clicked on the concrete floor. Ethan turned slowly, his neck stiff. A woman stepped into the neon light. She wore an elegant navy business outfit with a perfectly arranged shawl, exuding authority and composure. Her face was radiant, her presence commanding. Around her neck hung a VIP police access badge. It was Diana Anderson. Behind her stood Fajar, upright and silent like a loyal shadow. Ethan froze. You are Mr. Ramond's client?" Diana walked closer, stopping at a safe distance, unwilling to approach the stench of sweat and despair clinging to Ethan. "Allow me to introduce myself formally," Diana said coldly. "My name is Diana Anderson, sole owner of Anderson Investment Group, the parent company of Shadow Capital, which holds 90% of the shares in the company you worked for." She paused. "In other words, I own your office, your chair, and the money you stole." Ethan's jaw dropped. No sound came out. The woman who used to make his coffee every morning, the woman he scolded over under-seasoned meals, the woman he mocked for having no income, was his ultimate boss. "You, all this time?" Ethan stammered. "All this time I stayed silent. I wanted to see whether you could be a trustworthy leader if given power. My father insisted on giving you that chance. You were placed as a puppet director to test you." She leaned forward slightly. "And you failed completely. You're not only incompetent, you're immoral. Commissioner Ramond has been my family's lawyer since I was a child. He reported every single dollar you misappropriated. I let him collect the evidence. waiting for the right moment. Her eyes hardened. And when you brought that woman into my house, that was the moment you signed your own death sentence. Ethan broke down in tears, this time genuine regret. Diana, forgive me. I didn't know. I'll return everything. Please withdraw the report. We're husband and wife. We stopped being husband and wife the moment you threw me out. And as for the money, you have nothing to return. Your assets are zero. Your debts are in the millions of US dollars. She straightened. You'll spend a very long time in prison. Diana turned away, signaling Mr. Rahman and Fajar to leave. Don't leave me, Diana, please! Ethan screamed desperately. She stopped at the doorway, but didn't look back. Goodbye, Ethan, she said softly. May the cold iron bars teach you gratitude, the one lesson you never learned. The door closed. Ethan was left alone once more, with Commissioner Arya staring at him, half pity, half disgust. In that narrow interrogation room, Ethan finally realized how insignificant he was, a mere ant, crushed by a giant who had once slept beside him. His arrogance had come back like a boomerang, severing his own neck. The air inside the women's detention cell was damp and foul, an unbearable mix of sweat, unwashed floors, and lingering despair. Vanessa Clark sat curled up in the corner, hugging her knees. The expensive party dress she wore during her arrest was now wrinkled, torn at the hem, and stained with grime. Her makeup had run from tears, leaving grotesque black streaks down her pale cheeks. There was no trace left of the arrogant socialite, only a terrified woman lost in a world she had never imagined. The other inmates watched her with hostile stares. They despised women like Vanessa, spoiled, delicate, weak. Vanessa squeezed her eyes closed, wishing that when she opened them, she'd be back in Ethan's luxurious bedroom with cold air conditioning. But the sharp shout of a guard striking the bars with a baton shattered her fantasy. Reality slapped her hard. She was in prison. This wasn't a nightmare she could wake up from. Her thoughts raced. She was still young, still beautiful. She had a future. She refused to rot in this hell because of Ethan's mistakes. Vanessa began to reconsider her loyalty. She had loved Ethan's money, not the man. She loved the lifestyle, not his temper. Now the money was gone, the lifestyle destroyed. Ethan was no longer an asset. He was a liability dragging her into the abyss. The cell door creaked open. Vanessa Clark, a female officer called harshly. An investigator wants to see you. The prosecutor gave a faint smile, as if she had already anticipated Vanessa Clark's reaction. Good, she said calmly. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. She leaned forward slightly. We can offer you a deal if you're willing to cooperate as a justice collaborator, a cooperating witness, and provide testimony that incriminates Ethan Miller and Wijaya during the trial. We will seek the lightest possible sentence for you. She paused deliberately. Possibly probation only, no prison time. Vanessa's eyes sparkled. Hope surged back into her chest. Probation meant freedom. Without thinking twice, without sparing even a second to consider Ethan's fate, which would inevitably be sealed by her testimony, Vanessa nodded eagerly. I'll do it, she blurted out. I'll tell you everything. Her voice grew heated, desperate. I know where Ethan hid the remaining cash. I know which officials he regularly bribed and entertained. I'll expose all his filth as long as I walk free. Her survival instinct had overpowered everything else. She was ready to step on Ethan's head if it meant keeping herself above water. Meanwhile, in the men's detention block, separated by concrete walls and steel doors, Ethan Miller sat motionless, staring at the cold gray wall in front of him.
He was worried about Vanessa. In his foolishness, Ethan still felt responsible for her. He imagined her crying in fear, calling his name. He still clung to the illusion that their love was genuine, a love merely being tested by hardship. He had no idea that the storm threatening to destroy him was coming from the very woman he was worrying about. That afternoon, officers escorted Ethan out for a confrontation of evidence. His steps were sluggish, his wrists were cuffed tightly in front of him. He was led into a large room where several suspects were already seated. The moment the door opened, Ethan's eyes locked onto a familiar figure sitting across the table. "Vanessa!" Ethan exclaimed. His face brightened slightly upon seeing her. "You're okay, sweetheart. Don't be afraid," he said urgently. "I'll ask my lawyer to handle your case, too. We'll face this together." He tried to step closer, but an officer restrained him. But Vanessa's reaction was nothing like Ethan had expected. She didn't run toward him. She didn't cry in relief. She didn't look at him with love. Vanessa stared at Ethan with pure disgust, as if he were filth stuck to the sole of her shoe. "Don't call me that," Vanessa snapped, her voice piercing the room. "You liar!" His steps faltered. "Vanessa, what are you talking about? It's me, Ethan, your fiancé." "Fiancé?" Vanessa spat onto the floor. "Who would ever marry a broke, corrupt criminal like you?" Her words stabbed deeper than any physical blow. "You lied to me, Ethan," she continued venomously. "You said you were rich. You said the company was yours." Her voice rose. "But you were just a puppet, a servant pretending to have power. Because of you, my life is ruined. Because of you, I'm locked in this filthy cell." Ethan felt his heart shatter. "Why are you talking like this?" he whispered. "I did all of this for you, to fund your lifestyle, to make you happy." "Don't drag me into your crimes," Vanessa screamed hysterically. "You're the greedy one." She turned toward the officers. "Listen, officers, this man forced me to accept those items. He said the money was legal, bonuses. I didn't know it was stolen." She pointed at Ethan. "Punish him severely. He's the real criminal." Ethan stumbled backwards, his body weak. In that moment, he finally saw Vanessa's true face, the face of a parasite, loyal only while its host could be drained. When the host began to die, it fled without hesitation. Ethan's thoughts drifted to Diana Anderson. Diana, who stayed by his side when he was sick. Diana, who prayed for him every night. Diana, who never demanded luxury handbags or diamonds. He had thrown away a diamond, only to clutch a sharp pebble that was now slicing his own hands open. In the midst of the chaos, the door opened once again. The room fell silent instantly. Diana Anderson entered accompanied by Fajar and Mr. Ramat. Her presence carried an aura of authority that commanded immediate respect. Diana wore an elegant gray long dress with a neatly arranged shawl draped over her shoulders. Her face was calm, free from hatred, free from sorrow. Ethan looked at her with tear-filled eyes, hoping desperately for even a hint of compassion. But Diana's gaze was colder than ice. She didn't look at Ethan. Instead, she walked directly toward the investigator's table and handed over additional documents. After that, she turned to leave. Gathering his courage, Ethan called out in a hoarse, pitiable voice, "Diana, look at me. Look at what this woman has done to me." His voice broke. "You were right, weren't you? About everything." Diana stopped. She turned slowly, her gaze shifting between Ethan, utterly broken, and Vanessa, who now trembled, unable to meet Diana's eyes. "I don't need validation from you, Ethan," Diana replied flatly. What's happening in this room is merely a logical consequence. She continued coldly. You chose a woman who loved your wealth, so it's only natural that she hates you now that your wealth is gone. This isn't betrayal, it's a failed business transaction. Then she looked directly at Vanessa. Vanessa lowered her head, shrinking under Diana's overwhelming presence. "And you, Miss Clark?" Diana said softly, yet every word cut deep. "Enjoy your new role as a witness." She paused. "But remember this, traitors never sleep peacefully, not inside a prison, not outside it." Diana turned and walked away. Ethan collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. He cried for his stupidity, he cried for his fate, he cried for losing the only woman who had ever truly loved him. In that room, Ethan was completely alone, betrayed by his mistress and abandoned by his lawful wife. Karma had arrived in its most painful form, eternal loneliness in the middle of a crowd. 2 months later, the Central Jakarta District Court was packed with spectators. The corruption case involving Ethan Miller had become a media sensation, not only because of the astronomical sums involved, but also because of the scandalous marital drama surrounding it. The main courtroom felt suffocating despite the air conditioning running at full blast. Journalists crowded the front rows, cameras ready to capture every second of Ethan's fall. Ethan sat at the defendant's table. He wore an orange-red detention vest with his inmate number printed across his chest. His hair was closely shaven, his face was gaunt, cheekbones protruding sharply. Nothing remained of the powerful CEO he once was. Beside him sat a court-appointed public defender. Ethan could no longer afford a high-profile attorney like Mr. Ramat. The panel of judges entered with stern expressions. The presiding judge struck the gavel 3 times, opening the session for the reading of charges and asset forfeiture. The judge's heavy voice echoed throughout the courtroom, listing Ethan's crimes: embezzlement of investment funds, manipulation of tax reports, fraud to shareholders, money laundering through personal asset purchases. Each time the judge mentioned the amount stolen, tens of millions of US dollars, the audience gasped in shock. Ethan kept his head down, staring at the scuffed tips of his shoes. He didn't dare lift his face, afraid of the contempt in the eyes of those who once praised him. Then came the asset seizure phase. The prosecutor stood and read aloud the list of Ethan's properties to be confiscated by the state and returned to Shadow Capital as restitution. A luxury house in Pondidendai, a high-end apartment in Kuningan, 3 luxury vehicles, bank balances across 5 different banks, jewelry, 2 hectares of land in Bogar. All assets were proven to have been purchased using criminal proceeds or registered under third parties to evade the law. The prosecutor's voice was firm and unwavering. Ethan lifted his head slightly, panic flashing across his face. "That land in Bogar is my last hope," Ethan shouted hoarsely, forgetting courtroom protocol. "It belongs to my parents. It's not from corruption. Please, don't take it." The judge fixed him with a sharp stare. "The defendant will remain calm," the judge said firmly. "The prosecution has evidence."
The projector screen lit up. A CCTV recording from the living room of Ethan Miller's house appeared, dated 2 months earlier. The footage was crystal clear. Ethan could be seen throwing a suitcase violently toward Diana Anderson. His face was flushed with rage. The audio boomed through the courtroom, unmistakably clear. "Get out of this house, now. Let's see how long you survive without my money. By tomorrow morning, you'll probably be a homeless beggar on the sidewalk." Ethan's voice in the video was arrogant, cruel, and degrading. The courtroom audience held their breath. They witnessed Diana's patience on screen and Ethan's sheer brutality. The video stopped. Diana turned back to look at Ethan, whose face had gone deathly pale with shame. His disgrace had been exposed to the public in its rawest form. "You said I'd become homeless without your money, Ethan," Diana said calmly, yet every word crushed him. "Let me correct you. That money was never yours. It was always mine, my family's money. You were merely a guest who forgot his place, mistaking himself for the owner simply because he was given a spare key." Diana stood tall, straightening her clothes. "Now look around you. You have no house, no car, no savings, and most tragically, you no longer have any dignity. So answer me, Ethan. Who is homeless now? Who will sleep on a cold floor tonight without a single dollar in his pocket?" The question hung in the air, stabbing straight into Ethan's chest. He couldn't answer. He lowered his head deeply, realizing that Diana's words were an absolute bitter truth. He had been devoured by his own arrogance. The curse he once hurled at his wife had returned, striking his face 10 times harder. The judge struck the gavel, calling the court back into session for the sentencing. Ethan was dragged back to the defendant's seat. His legs felt paralyzed. As he sat, the verdict was read: 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution fines. Failure to pay would result in additional incarceration. The sound of the gavel echoed like a death bell for Ethan's future. He watched Diana walk out of the courtroom without looking back. Her back was straight, radiant, stepping toward freedom and success. Meanwhile, Ethan, the false king, was now nothing more than an inmate with a number, a true homeless man, a man who had lost direction, honor, and life itself. Time is the cruelest yet fairest judge. For some, time races forward, bringing happiness. For Ethan, time crawled slowly, like a snail sliding across a razor blade. Fate had spun 180 degrees with lethal speed. After enduring years of exhausting legal processes that drained the last remnants of his sanity, Ethan finally breathed free air again. But freedom didn't taste sweet. It tasted bitter, dusty, and harsh. He stepped out of the prison gate carrying only a thin plastic bag containing 2 faded, worn-out shirts. No luxury car waited for him. No Vanessa Clark greeted him with open arms. She had disappeared long ago, rumored to have entered a secret marriage with a land tycoon outside the island after delivering testimony that sealed Ethan's fate. No former business associates acknowledged him. Ethan was utterly alone in a world that now felt foreign and hostile. His name was on a national blacklist. His criminal record as a corporate corruption offender made employment impossible, even at the lowest level. Companies that once competed to recruit him now slammed their doors shut the moment they recognized his face. Former golf partners pretended not to know him on the street. The former CEO, who once flaunted watches worth hundreds of thousands of US dollars, was now nothing more than social trash, avoided by everyone. That night, drizzle soaked the hard sidewalks of Jakarta. Ethan staggered forward, clutching his stomach in pain. He hadn't eaten all day. The last allowance given by prison officers had already been spent on cold medicine. Earlier that morning, he tried applying for work as a porter at a market, only to be chased away by local thugs for being too weak and old. His once muscular body, built from years at elite gyms, was now skeletal. His cheekbones jutted sharply, skin darkened by the sun. Ethan stopped in front of a closed shop front. The display window showed mannequins dressed in tailored suits, exactly like the ones he once wore daily. He stared at his reflection. The image was horrifying. Long, unkempt gray hair, a wild, neglected beard, sunken eyes devoid of life. A ghost from his own past. He remembered standing proudly before a mirror, adjusting his silk tie with a smug smile, preparing to trample his wife's dignity. With heavy breaths, Ethan spread out a piece of discarded cardboard taken from a trash bin. This was his bed now. Cold, hard, filthy. He curled up, hugging his knees against the bone-piercing chill. Traffic roared nearby, a tragic lullaby. His stomach growled violently. Hunger wasn't a feeling anymore. It was physical pain. He imagined warm rice with simple dishes cooked by Diana. Back then, he often threw away the lunches she prepared, preferring luxury restaurants with clients or Vanessa. He mocked Diana's cooking as low class. Now, for even a bite of stale rice, Ethan would do anything. Regret slammed into his chest every second. He missed Diana, not as an asset or savior, but as the only human who had ever loved him sincerely. Suddenly, a blinding car spotlight hit his eyes. A vehicle stopped right in front of him. Ethan squinted, his heart pounding. Was it city enforcement or a generous passerby? The engine purred softly, a sound Ethan knew too well, the engine of a high-end European luxury sedan. The rear window lowered slowly. Cool air conditioning and expensive perfumes spilled out, mixing with the stench of the street. Ethan straightened, swallowing his pride. "Sir, ma'am, please," he begged weakly. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. Anything helps." The door opened and a man stepped out from the driver's seat, wearing a neat black uniform and holding a large umbrella. He approached Ethan with firm steps. When he stopped in front of him, Ethan's face turned white. "Fajar? Is that you?" It was Fajar, his former assistant, now revealed as Diana's trusted right hand. Fajar looked far more authoritative and successful than when he pretended to be Ethan's driver. He scanned Ethan coldly. No pity, no hatred, just professional indifference. "Please help me," Ethan pleaded. "I'm Ethan, your former boss. Give me any job, washing cars, gardening, anything." Fajar said nothing. He reached into his pocket and tossed a few US dollar coins into an empty can beside him. The metallic clink echoed humiliatingly in the night. Then Fajar retrieved a food package from the car. "Eat," he said briefly, handing him a cold boxed meal. Ethan snatched it, tearing it open with trembling hands. He devoured it greedily. Rice with fried tempeh and vegetables. It tasted like the best meal on earth. Tears fell onto the food as he ate. "Miss Anderson saw you from across the street," Fajar said suddenly. Ethan choked. "Diana? Where is she?" Fajar pointed towards a towering skyscraper across the road. At the top floor, lights shone brightly. "That's the headquarters of her family's investment firm. She's in a board meeting. She recognized you and asked me to deliver that food." Shame burned Ethan's face. "Please, tell her I'm sorry," he whispered. "I've received my karma. I'm destroyed. Is she satisfied?" Fajar shook his head. "She feels no satisfaction, sir. To her, you're just a closed chapter. She doesn't hate you. Hate means caring. She simply doesn't care." Those words hurt more than any slap. Indifference was proof Ethan no longer existed. Fajar turned to leave, then looked back. "Oh, and remember what you once said. You said Diana would be homeless without your money." He smiled faintly. "Turns out God has a very sharp sense of humor. Enjoy your dinner. Don't forget to throw out the trash properly." The window closed. The luxury car drove off, splashing muddy water onto Ethan's face. He didn't wipe it away. He sat frozen, holding a few US dollars and half a meal, realizing this was the remainder of his life. A king turned beggar. A husband turned stranger. A man turned shadow. 6 months later, a grand